Okay, shall we get started? Let me introduce myself. My name is Matthew DiBiase. I am the author of these two books that you see here before you. The first one that you see here is called Bench Bosses, the NHL's Coaching Elite. This was released in October 2015. And my latest book, which was released last November, is called The Art of the Dealers, the NHL's Greatest General Managers. I am a sports author. I have, these are my first two books. Even though the subject matter for these two books deals with hockey history, actually I'm more of a sports historian in general. I have an interest in a multitude of sports. Hockey among others. I'm going to be working over the years to come, like the next 10 years to come, I'll be working on books dealing with a wide variety of sports topics. Like right now I'm working on a book about the 50 greatest college football head coaches of all time, which hopefully should be released around Labor Day weekend of 2019. And then after that, I've got a manuscript ready for the 50 greatest NBA head coaches of all time, which should come out like either 2020 or 2021. Then after that, for the year 2022, I want to put out a book on the 50 greatest NFL head coaches of all time. And then after that, like in 2026, which will be the 150th anniversary of Major League Baseball, I want to put out a book on the 50 greatest baseball managers of all time. And then like 3 or 4 years after that, I want to put out a book on the 50 greatest college basketball coaches of all time. I just love writing. I've been writing ever since I was 17 years old. I mean, when I was in high school, I would be writing lyrics and poetry and all like that. And then when I was in college, I was like an op-ed columnist for my college newspaper, and I did that for 2 years. And then I kind of sublimated my writing for a while because I was working in the career that I'm working now. I work for the National Archives and Records Administration's a regional branch in Philadelphia. I've been working there since 1991. I'm a professional historian by trade. So ever since I was a kid, the researching history has always been in my blood, and especially sports history. When I was 10 years old, I was born in 1963, I could recite all the World Series winners from 1903 up to 73, just like that, call out a year and I could do it. Now, I don't know about now, I mean, the old IBM isn't what it used to be, but back then, I mean, I was always better at reading and researching sports history than playing sports itself. I was hapless on the ball field, but when it came to retaining sports history, it was like a duck I took to it like a duck to water. And this is like fulfilling a childhood dream, writing about sports history, breaking new ground, because the two books that you see here before you are groundbreaking works. No one has ever written a book about the 50 greatest hockey coaches using an analytical method. I mean, there have been bios and memoirs by hockey coaches, but no one has ever attempted to rate and rank the 50 greatest NHL head coaches using a rating system. I devised a rating system where, for this book here, I established 6 universal standards of success and 4 universal standards of failure. Whereas if you made the playoffs, you got 1 point. If you had a winning season, you got 2 points. If your winning percentage was above 600, you got 3 points. If you finished in first place, you got 4. Reach the Stanley Cup Finals, you get 5. Win the Stanley Cup, you get 6. At best, you could get 21 points if you got all 6 standards. And conversely for failure, if you had a losing season, you lost 1 point. If you didn't make the playoffs, you lose 2. If your winning percentage was below 400, you lost 3. And if you finished in last place, you get 4. So I ran from 1917 up to 2015, I ran every single NHL coach through that rating method, and the end result is this book that you see here. And it's not just the NHL, I even did some rival leagues as well, like the old World Hockey Association that existed in the 1970s. Every coach from that league was rated in this book. Some early pro leagues that actually rivaled the NHL in 1917 and 1926, the Pacific Coast Hockey Association and the Western Canada Hockey League. For a time, from 1917 to 1926, 2 or 3 leagues actually vied for the Stanley Cup. It was literally a challenge between 2 and 3 leagues. And it was very intriguing. I mean, was it in 1925? Yeah, the Victoria Cougars from the Western Canada Hockey League actually beat the Montreal Canadiens for the Stanley Cup that year. And it was only in 1926 that finally the NHL had sole exclusive rights to the Stanley Cup. Now for this book here, this followed 2 years after publication of Bench Bosses here. This came out of a series of articles I wrote in 2013 where I used an earlier version of the rating method, trying to isolate who were the 50 greatest NHL general managers of all time. And for like a 1 year period, for 50 straight weeks, I put out articles. And that was in 2013. And after this came out, I tried to put out a book on basketball, but my agent was unable to secure a contract. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought I had these articles, so what I did was I took those old articles and I just fleshed them out, beefed them up, and went over them again, just because I tinkered with my rating method. I actually added 2 standards of success and two extra standards of failure. The standards of success was if your winning percentage was above 700, you got 7 points. And if your winning percentage was above 800, you got 8 points. And there are rare instances where some NHL teams had some extraordinary performances, like the 43-44 Montreal Canadiens finished above 800%. The 1929-30 Bruins did that. Actually, what the 29-30 Bruins did was set the NHL record. I think their winning percentage was something like above 850 or something like that. It's never been broken, never been equaled. But they didn't win the Stanley Cup that year. They got knocked off in the playoffs in the first round. Seriously, yeah. Back then, from 29 to 42, they had this skewy, crazy playoff system. You think it's bad now, it was even worse back then. A lot of times, the best teams would get knocked off in the first round simply because of the system. I mean, the Bruins, 5 times, the Bruins got knocked off, even though they were one of the strongest teams because of the screwy nature of the playoff system. But I beefed up these books, and then in a 1 year period, I started calling up as many active and retired NHL general managers as I could, and actually got to interview them. Like I interviewed Lou Lamoriello, who's the present-day general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I interviewed Doug Wilson, who is general manager of the San Jose Sharks. I interviewed Dean Lombardi mere months before he got fired as general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. Now he's a consultant with the Flyers, because Ron Hextall was his deputy and had cut his spurs as an assistant general manager with the Kings before he became present-day general manager of the Flyers. I interviewed, Doug Armstrong, who's the present-day general manager of the St. Louis Blues. I talked to him. George McPhee, look at Las Vegas, the Vegas team, who just won the divisional title. I interviewed him mere months before the regular season began. And when I asked him, what do you think of your chances? He said, well, we'll just do the best we can, and here they are. I mean, if he does not win the General Manager of the Year award, I'll eat my hat. But I talked to him. He was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And they took your calls?
Yeah. I mean, some of them, I had a few refusals.
What about Rutherford or Eiserman?
I talked to him. I actually interviewed him on Thanksgiving morning in the year 2016. The Penguins were on the road in Minnesota. He had nothing to do in the morning, and I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go that day. So he said, let's do it. And we did it. He was a great guy. Fantastic interview. You'll see in this book here, read the results of it, his insights. Talk about a survivor. I mean, with his years at Carolina, only when he came to Pittsburgh did he finally crack the top 50 according to my rating system. Well, I mean, in Carolina, he was just barely keeping his nose above water. But when he went to the Penguins, he just took off and
zoomed. Another ring this year.
Wouldn't put it past him. Hey, yeah. I mean, he just advanced in leaps and bounds. He said, yeah, great guy. I remember when he played. I remember watching him when I played. Let's see who else I talked to. A couple of retired ones like Jim Devellano, who he's the one who made the Detroit Red Wings winners and champions again. Scotty Bowman I talked to. Harry Sinden, legendary general manager of the Boston Bruins. Great guy. Actually, it's the second time I interviewed him. I interviewed him for this book as well. Great guy. Let's see. Who else I talked to? Cliff Fletcher, man who built the Calgary Flames literally from scratch. He was there right in the beginning when they were in Atlanta, and then moved them, and he managed them right to the Stanley Cup in 1989, and also managed the Leafs. Great guy, great interview there. Trader Cliff, the Silver Fox. Craig Patrick, Lester Patrick's grandson, who built the Pittsburgh Penguins and managed them to the two Stanley Cup titles in the 90s. We talk, a great interview where he told me how they got Jaromir Jagr. It's in the book there. Very emotional too. I mean, when he was talking about his grandfather, he cried a little, he wept for a little bit. I mean, he got very emotional there. I mean, yeah. Funny too. He was funny when I was interviewing him. But in that 1 year, I did all those interviews, and it wasn't just general managers. I talked to some former players who talked about some, like Jocelyn Gouvernement, who talked about the late Punch Imlock, who literally built the Buffalo Sabres from scratch. We talked about that. And the end results are what you see in this book. But like I said, no one has ever written a book where general managers of one of the major sports was ever rated and analyzed using analytics. It's never been done for baseball. It's never been done for football, never been done for pro basketball, and this is the first of its kind for hockey. Literally groundbreaking. And that's a nice thing about, if you're thinking about writing and publishing your own books, that's what publishers like. Groundbreaking. Something that's never been done before, a new subject matter, a new way, a new topic, instead of writing the same old, same old. They like that. That's one of the reasons why I was able to get a publishing contract for Bench Bosses, because, again, no one had ever done a book of that nature before. It was literally so unique, and Random House really loved it, and they said, yes, we want to publish this thing. Now, sadly, I couldn't get a contract from our regular publishing firm for The Art of the Dealers, because the problem was, they said it was just too esoteric and arcane a subject. They just didn't see a market for it. They said the only people I could see writers are super hockey geeks from the Society of International Hockey Researchers, which I'm a member of. I'm a member of. They just couldn't see a market for it. So, thus stymied, I decided to use CreateSpace, Amazon's personal self-publishing organ for books. They do magnificent work. And it didn't cost me a penny. The only money I spent was, I know nothing about cover design. I don't know a thing about it. So what I did was, one of my coworkers has a bright young son who's a freshman in college, who's very good at such things. So I gave the young man $100, and he did, and what you see here, this front and back covers, he personally designed. Best $100 I ever spent. So if any one of you ever has a notion of self-publishing, and it's right out there. I mean, it's so easy. You know, if you know how to do your own desktop publishing, I mean, creating your own cover design, front and back cover, or if you've got a friend who can do that, you know, a person, you can give them a few dollars to do that. Again, it didn't cost me a penny to put this out here. Not one red cent. Rule of thumb is, the more you can do for yourself, then the less you really have to spend on putting this thing out there. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about CreateSpace. As long as your cover fits within their parameters, and actually there was like a 3-week delay in getting this out because it was sizing. We had to, and the thing about CreateSpace was they weren't saying what exactly was wrong. They just said it doesn't fit, but too big, too little, they weren't saying. And we kind of had to do it by guesswork, and finally we guessed right. We actually realized it was too small. So we just altered the image and it fit within the parameters, and bing, it accepted it just like that. So the rule of thumb is, just make sure when you're doing your cover design, it fits within the parameters. They have a thing you can download, but you just gotta make sure it works out fine. And if you can do it yourself, then you don't have to spend a penny to get it out there. I mean, it's out there forevermore. And the nice thing is they only produce, you won't find this in a bookstore. You can't buy this on a bookshelf like at a Barnes & Noble. You have to order this online, okay? Like these, I bought these myself. These are my own copies, which I'm using for occasions just like this one, okay, to have on hand. And also, I distributed copies out to those general managers who cooperated with me as my way of saying thank you. A lot of them said, can you please send me a copy? And that's what I did. In honor of their wishes, that's what I did. I mailed it out for complimentary copies. But if you wanted to buy this book, if you wanted to tout this to a friend, you have to get it online at Amazon. It's up there. Just type in my name, and there it is. And right now it's on sale for the remainder, for all of April, May, and June at only $17.50. It's on sale.
You could get a free sample too on Kindle, like for like.
Yeah, and it's also, both of these books are on Kindle as well, both of them, okay? Because Especially this book here. You can get it on Kindle if you want to. The CreateSpace has a relationship with Kindle. Now, again, it didn't cost me anything to put this up there. It's free. All you have to, and the website is very self-explanatory for helping you navigate through their system. And they've got teams of assistants out there. You can call them up, ask them questions. I have a problem with this, this, and this, and they guide you through it. And even if you couldn't get someone to help you with the design, if for a fee, I think it's like 200 and change, they can design one for you. You just give them some specifications. But if you can do it yourself, then you don't have to pay anything. Okay, so it pays if you can do it yourself, or if you got a friend who knows how to do these things, ask the friend to help you out. Okay, you just give them a few dollars, you know.
So what program did you write this in?
Oh, these were classic Word documents, you know, Word 9703, or just basic Word documents. I mean, I just used 8.5 by 11 formatting there, but you can do other formats there. You can pick it out through CreateSpace. It could be 8.5 by 11, or it could be like small, I think it was at 5 by 7. I think they've got a variety of sizes there. And, you know, and they calculate what the cost is, you know, and then you create your own pricing. You can come up with your own pricing. I can do my own sales. Like I had cut it from like $21.25 to $17.50 around Easter time because, you know, it's a special sale. In fact, with the playoffs coming up, you know, I just had a couple sales just the other day, you know, because of that. You know, you can create your own pricing. You can change it on a whim, just like that. And also, if you found like a glitch in the manuscript, you can just edit it, put it in the corrected version, and fix the problem right there.
Have you sent out a press release? Especially around the time this time? It might help.
It's up on Amazon. You create your own Amazon thing. You just type in your own content, but things like that can kind of cost. I mean, you can do that, but you got to pay. And if you're on
a free press release to the Philadelphia Inquirer.
No, I didn't do that. Unfortunately.
Around when the Stanley Cup starts, you should send out a press release. Seriously, send it to Philadelphia.
Yeah. But that's kind of, that's up to you. I mean, there are some ways you can get it out, but the thing is they do cost, okay? It can cost some pennies. Now, if you've got the money to do it, okay, go for it. But if you're like me, a functioning brokester, yeah, can't do it. So, and also like I'm doing right here now, giving these author talks here. You know, that's another way of promotion here. But again, you know, I self-publish this, and it's all my own content here. But you got to do your own editing, though, okay? And you got to, you know, like this was professionally edited, but this one, you got to do it all by yourself. But if you don't mind doing that, CreateSpace is a beautiful way to go, and I absolutely endorse it. It came through big time for me. So that's what I did. I mean, literally, these are groundbreaking works. I mean, basically, I have this motto called "History of Bores of Vacuum," and what these books were filling a vacuum. You know, because like I said, no one had ever done this before, but now these books exist, and all future hockey people interested can use these as frame of references for future research. Like if you're curious about where did this person, where does he rank in the pantheon? This book can give you a notion to go on here. It's fodder for future discussion, for sports talk. I mean, I did some radio interviews for both books. A Canadian radio. I remember there was a station out in Nova Scotia. I forget what their call sign was, but I did it for them. I think there was a radio station in Kitchener. I did a talk with them. I did a guy up in Kingston, New York. I did a few months ago. In fact, next weekend, April 14th, I'm talking to a guy in Dallas. His podcast there. I actually did a Philly Sports Roundtable about a month or so ago. I talked to them. I tried for WIP, but they went no takers. You know, I tried, but they weren't interested. Maybe for the other books, you know, hopefully I'll get an audience for that. But you know, there's ways of reaching out. I mean, internet's so beautiful with Facebook and all that. You can send emails. Just let your fingers do the walking and just, you know, send out feelers and see who bites and all that. And sometimes they got lucky.
Yeah, hockey this morning I think is good on some radio station. They got a good hockey station.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember, like, for this book here, I remember, was it Sirius Radio out of Toronto? I did an interview. Oh, what was his name? I forget his name, but he does, you know, Sirius XM Radio, hockey talk there. And I remember it was a guy, what's his name, Tampa, Greg Linnelli. I mean, he does call for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Also, Pete Weber, who's the voice of the Nashville Predators. For this book, I talked to him there, but I tried to talk about this book, but nah, he was jammed up. We couldn't do it and all that. But it's out there. I mean, you can reach out to people if you push hard enough. You can reach out to people.
You do this primarily for enjoyment, I'm guessing. You don't do it for profit. That's not your motivation.
Well, hey, for this book, I got a five-figure advance for this book.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 figures. Low end of 5 figures, but more money than that. When I had that first check, oh man. What is it Carl Reiner said in Ocean's 11? He said, that's the sexiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, it was so beautiful. Now, sadly, yeah, I couldn't get any advance for this, but nice thing is, as soon as you get a sale, it's pure profit. You know, whether it's just a few dollars or more, every month I get a royalty check. So, you know, now for here, I got a 5-figure advance, but I haven't collected any royalties on this because first you have to pay off the advance before you can collect on royalties. And since I haven't paid off the 5-figure advance, I haven't gotten any royalties since then. So, Sacred Blue, it's a give and a take. I mean, I kind of figured people like Scott Turow or Grisham, they make up their advance money right in the initial run and they get into it right away. You got to be a name, you know, and all of that. But it's still,
It's also fiction.
yeah.
Yours is nonfiction, and that's a
And also their names. You got to be a big name. And that's the thing. Here's the thing about the publishing industry. A friend of mine who's published several books, his name is Chico Adradas, he's published several books. He said, actually, the publishing industry is not what it used to be. He said, actually, it's been downsizing. And companies are getting leaner and leaner. And if you're going to make any type of money, you've got to be a super big name. You've got to be a celebrity. You've got to be like the President of the United States, or you've got to be Oprah or a movie star to really, really get mucho bucks, or you've got to be like a Jackie Collins or a Turow or a Grisham or a Bill James to really get that, you know, get the juice. Okay, but if you're a young, you know, if you're someone who's just getting started like me, it's hard. You know, it's very hard. I mean, I got lucky with this, but you know, and I couldn't get a deal with this, and even now I'm trying to get a deal with my college football book, but so far, I thought I would strike gold with it, considering college football is such a universal, but no, actually, this is what, I got a rejection from Triumph, and you know what they told me? He said, it's too broad and universal. I thought, what? What? I mean, this touches every corner of the nation, college football. And he said, and what they told me is that if I was a celeb writer, like, you know, Bill James or the late Frank DeFord, yeah, I could have gotten that contract. But since I'm not, they didn't want to touch it. But I still got some feelers out, and hopefully, through the grace of God, someone will see the light, and give me a deal on my college football book. But if I don't, that's the nice thing about CreateSpace, the ultimate fallback. When all else fails, you can put it out on CreateSpace, and there it is. You got it, okay? It's the ultimate fallback, the ultimate parachute, if you're stymied in the conventional publishing world. Beautiful. Nice to have a parachute like that. Beautiful.
Did I gather that based on the timing that you spend about 2 years on each book? Is that...
Yeah, okay, this took me about 2-3 years to write. Actually, I finished this in 2013, but this wasn't released till 2015. The manuscript was done in 13. Got my agent in it was done in 12. I was able to find an agent in the fall of 2012. Signed a contract with my agent. He took my proposal in January of 2013, and by April of 13, I got the contract with Random House and got the deal made. However, they really wanted to do a big push on this, so instead of coming out in 2014, they pushed it back another year. And that's why it came out in 2015. And all I did was update the manuscript to reflect the end of the 2014-15 season here. And this is accurate up to the end of the 2016-17 season here. And and that's one thing.
So you have an agent then?
Actually, I used to have an agent. Actually, I fired him October last year because he failed to get me deals on my basketball book, my pro basketball book, and also this general manager's book. It was just, there was tiny little things, and I just thought, if I wanted to self-publish, that's actually taking money out of his pockets, and I thought, this isn't going to work, and I thought, I need to break clear of this. So I'm invoking a clause in my contract with him. I sent him formal written notice saying, bye-bye, goodbye. And so I'm without an agent right now. That's another thing. If you want to get a conventional publishing deal for the big firms like Random House, like McGraw-Hill, the big boys, you've got to, you've got to have an agent, because on their websites, for submissions that we only deal with agents. If you don't have an agent, the big boys will not even look at your proposal. But the smaller publishing firms, the mid-sized and the small ones, which I've done, I sent feelers out to them, they will look at your proposal, okay? Food for thought. If you want the big boys, you've got to have an agent. If you can get the agent, that's a good rule of thumb. If you can sell an agent on your proposal, then odds are you probably can get a contract if you've got the right subject matter for your book, okay? Now, with my pro basketball books, I couldn't get the contract because my agent sent feelers out. No, there's no market for it right now. No. So I got rebuffed.
Would you say that having an agent and publishing with Random House has given you better sales with bench bosses versus your other books?
Oh yeah, I've sold like